Ethan Rivers stood in the glass-walled conference room on the 47th floor of Sterling Enterprises, trying to understand what was happening. Around the table sat three executives he'd never met, all watching him with expressions that ranged from curious to uncomfortable. And at the head of the table stood Alexis Sterling herself, the 32-year-old billionaire CEO who built Sterling Enterprises from a small tech startup into a global powerhouse in just 8 years. "Mr. Rivers," Alexis said, her voice cool and professional. "Thank you for coming up on such short notice." Ethan had been working in the IT department for 6 months, a mid-level position that paid enough to support his son Noah and keep their small apartment. He'd been at his desk troubleshooting network issues when security had appeared and asked him to accompany them upstairs. "Of course, Miss Sterling. How can I help you?" Alexis walked slowly around the table, her heels clicking on the polished floor. "Mr. Rivers, it's come to our attention that there have been some concerns about your performance." Ethan's stomach dropped. "I wasn't aware of any issues. My supervisor hasn't mentioned anything. Your supervisor isn't aware of everything that happens in this company." "I am." Alexis stopped directly across from him. "We've been monitoring productivity across all departments, and your metrics have been concerning. With respect, Ms. Sterling, my work quality has been consistently rated excellent. I've resolved tickets faster than department average, and I haven't had any complaints from users. Speed and quality aren't the only metrics that matter. We've noticed you leave exactly at 5 o'clock every day. You never work weekends. You decline to participate in the voluntary evening training program. This company values commitment, Mr. Rivers, dedication, the willingness to go above and beyond." Ethan felt heat rising in his face, but he kept his voice steady. "I have a 6-year-old son. Miss Sterling, I'm a single parent. I pick him up from after-school care at 5:30 every day. I spend weekends with him, and the evening training program runs until 8 o'clock, which would mean not seeing Noah before bedtime. Everyone has personal obligations, Mr. Rivers. The question is what you're willing to sacrifice for your career. I'm willing to work hard during my scheduled hours. I'm willing to be excellent at my job. But I'm not willing to sacrifice my son's well-being for a company that could replace me tomorrow." One of the executives shifted uncomfortably in her seat. The man next to her stared at the table. Alexis's expression didn't change. "That's an interesting perspective. Unfortunately, it's not aligned with Sterling Enterprises culture. We need team members who are all in, not people who are watching the clock. I complete all my assigned work. I exceed my targets. What I don't do is perform unnecessary overtime to create the appearance of dedication." "Mr. Rivers, I'm going to be direct with you. We're letting you go, effective immediately. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings, and HR will process your final paycheck." The words hit like a physical blow. Ethan gripped the edge of the table, his mind racing. 6 months of stable employment, gone. The health insurance Noah needed for his asthma medication, gone. The security he'd finally started to feel after years of struggling, gone. "May I ask if there's anything I can do to change this decision? Any area where my performance has actually been deficient that I could improve? This isn't a negotiation, the decision is final." Ethan looked at each person in the room. The female executive wouldn't meet his eyes. The others sat like statues, uncomfortable witnesses to someone else's disaster. "All right," Ethan said quietly. "I understand." Alexis's eyebrow raised slightly. "That's it? No arguing? No threats to sue for wrongful termination? Would it change anything?" "No." "Then there's no point." Ethan straightened his shoulders. "I appreciate the opportunity to have worked here, however brief. I hope Sterling Enterprises continues to be successful, and I hope someday you learn that there's more to a person's value than their willingness to prioritize work over the people they love." "Excuse me? You asked why I'm not arguing. It's because I know my worth, Miss Sterling. I'm an excellent IT professional. I'll find another job. Maybe not immediately, maybe it'll be hard for a while, but Noah and I will be okay because we have each other. That's something no amount of overtime could ever replace." Ethan turned to leave, then paused. "And for what it's worth, I feel sorry for you." Alexis's composure cracked slightly. You feel sorry for me? I'm a billionaire CEO, and you're an unemployed single father. Really? Yes. Because you clearly believe that dedication to work is the highest value a person can have. That means you've either never had someone in your life worth making time for, or you've sacrificed those relationships for your career. Either way, that's sad. No matter how successful you become, you'll always be alone. The silence in the room was absolute. Ethan could see genuine shock on Alexis Sterling's face. "Thank you for your time," he said simply, and walked out. Security escorted him to his desk, where he packed his few personal items into a small box. His coworkers watched with a mixture of sympathy and fear, wondering if they might be next. In the elevator down, Ethan allowed himself one moment of panic. How would he pay rent? How long would his savings last? What would he tell Noah? Then he took a breath and steadied himself. He'd been through worse. He'd survived this too. That evening, after picking up Noah and making dinner, Ethan sat his son down. "Buddy, I need to tell you something. I lost my job today." Noah's eyes widened. "Did you do something bad?" "No, sweetheart. My boss decided they wanted someone who would work more hours, and I told them I needed to be home with you. So they let me go." "Because of me?" Ethan pulled Noah into a tight hug. "Not because of you, because I chose you, and I'll choose you every single time, Noah. Jobs come and go. But you're my son, and you're the most important thing in my life. What are we going to do?" "I'm going to find another job. It might take a little while, but I will. In the meantime, we might need to be extra careful with money. Maybe skip eating out for a bit. But we'll be okay." Noah was quiet for a moment. "Dad, you're the best dad ever, even if we have to eat toast for every meal." Ethan laughed despite everything. "We won't have to eat toast for every meal, I promise." 3 days later, Ethan was deep into job applications when his phone rang. An unknown number. "Mr. Rivers, this is Jennifer Wu. I'm the head of HR at Sterling Enterprises." Ethan's pulse quickened. "Yes, Miss Wu. How can I help you? I'm calling because Miss Sterling would like to meet with you. Would you be available tomorrow at 10? May I ask what this is regarding?" "She didn't specify. She just asked me to contact you and see if you'd be willing to come in." Ethan considered. What could Alexis Sterling possibly want? To gloat? To serve him with some kind of legal papers? "I'll be there," he said finally. Partly from curiosity, partly from the hope that maybe, impossibly, she'd changed her mind. The next morning, Ethan returned to Sterling Enterprises. But instead of being led to the conference room, he was brought directly to Alexis Sterling's private office. She stood at the window, looking out over the city. When she turned, Ethan was surprised to see that she looked tired, less polished than she had during their last meeting. "Mr. Rivers, thank you for coming. Miss Sterling, please sit down. Can I get you anything? Coffee, water? I'm fine, thank you." Alexis sat across from him, and for a long moment, she just studied him. "I need to tell you something. That meeting 3 days ago, it wasn't real." Ethan felt confusion wash over him. "I'm sorry, what?" "It was a test, a very specific test that I've been running across several departments. I identify employees who maintain excellent performance while also maintaining clear work-life boundaries. People who leave on time, who don't sacrifice their personal lives for their jobs. Then I manufacture a scenario where they're fired specifically for those choices. Why would you do that? To see how they respond. Whether they panic, whether they threaten litigation, whether they try to backtrack on their principles, whether they compromise their values when their livelihood is threatened." Ethan's hands clenched. "You played with people's lives as an experiment?" "Yes, and it was wrong. I know that now." Alexis leaned forward. "Mr. Rivers, your response was unlike anything I expected. You didn't beg, you didn't threaten, you didn't try to compromise or promise to work harder. You simply accepted it with dignity and walked away. And then you said something that's been haunting me for 3 days. What was that? You said you felt sorry for me, that I would always be alone." Her voice cracked slightly. "You were right." Alexis stood and walked to her desk, picking up a framed photograph. "This is my father. He died 2 years ago of a heart attack. He worked himself to death building a company that eventually failed anyway. I visited him in the hospital, and you know what his last words to me were?" Ethan shook his head. He said, "I was a terrible father. I'm sorry. Don't make the same mistake." He knew he'd sacrificed his family, his health, everything for work, and it killed him. Literally killed him. She set the photo down carefully. "I built Sterling Enterprises partly to honor him, but also to prove something, that you could be successful without sacrificing everything. But somehow, I ended up recreating exactly what he did. I demanded that same sacrifice from everyone who worked for me. I tested them to make sure they'd put work first. Why? Because if everyone else was sacrificing, then my own sacrifice felt justified. If work-life balance was a weakness, then I wasn't weak for not having a life outside this office. But your response, Mr. Rivers, it shattered that rationalization." Alexis walked back to her chair. "You showed me that having boundaries isn't weakness, that choosing family isn't failure, that a person can be excellent at their job without making it their entire existence. And you did it without being cruel or judgmental. You just stated your truth with such quiet certainty that I couldn't ignore it. I still don't understand why you're telling me this, because I want to offer you your job back, with a raise, and I want to offer you something else. A position as my advisor on company culture. Help me transform Sterling Enterprises into a place that values employees as whole people, not just productive units." Ethan sat back, overwhelmed. "You want me to help you change your entire company culture?" "Yes. Because you understand something I forgot. That the purpose of work is to support life, not replace it. That success means nothing if you're alone at the end of it. That raising a child, being present for them, that's work too. Maybe the most important work. Why me specifically? You could hire consultants, experts in organizational development. I could, but they'd tell me what I want to hear. They'd package their advice in corporate speak and implementation strategies. You'll tell me the truth. Like you did in that conference room when you could have just taken the hit quietly and left." Ethan thought about Noah, about the values he wanted to model for his son, about integrity and authenticity and the courage to speak truth to power. "If I agree to this, I need to set some conditions. Name them. First, this testing stops immediately. You don't play games with people's livelihoods. If you want to understand your employees, you talk to them honestly." "Agreed." "Second, I still leave at 5. I still don't work weekends. I'm still a father first and an employee second. If you can't respect that, this won't work. I can respect that. In fact, I'm counting on it. Third, any changes we implement, they start with you. You can't ask employees to have work-life balance while you're here until midnight every night. You have to model the behavior you want to see." Alexis smiled. "That's the hardest one. But you're right, agreed. Then yes, I'll take the job." Over the following months, Ethan worked closely with Alexis to transform Sterling Enterprises. They implemented strict policies against after-hours emails. They created generous parental leave programs. They evaluated managers not just on productivity, but on how well they supported their team's well-being. But the biggest change was in Alexis herself. She started leaving the office by 6. She took weekends off. She joined a book club and reconnected with college friends she'd neglected for years. "It's strange," she told Ethan one day as they reviewed employee satisfaction surveys. "I keep expecting the company to fall apart because I'm not here every waking moment. But it's actually doing better. Productivity is up. Turnover is down. People are happy. That's because they're not exhausted and resentful. They have time to recharge, to be with their families, to have lives. So when they're here, they're actually present and engaged." "I'm also dating someone," Alexis admitted, a slight blush coloring her cheeks. "A teacher I met at a charity event. He thinks my dedication to work-life balance is admirable. He doesn't know it's only because you shamed me into it." "I didn't shame you. I just told you the truth. Sometimes truth and shame feel the same. But I'm grateful for it." She paused. "Ethan, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure. Do you ever regret it? Standing up to me when you did? You could have just kept your head down, kept working here quietly. Instead, you risked everything to tell me I was wrong." Ethan thought about that day, about the fear he'd felt, and the courage it had taken to speak honestly. "No, I don't regret it. Because it wasn't really about you. It was about showing Noah how to live with integrity, about demonstrating that some principles are worth defending even when it costs you something. He's lucky to have you as a father. I'm lucky to have him as a son. 2 years later, Sterling Enterprises was recognized as one of the best companies to work for in the nation. They'd been featured in business magazines, studied by organizational psychologists, and held up as an example of how corporate success and human well-being could coexist. At the award ceremony, Alexis gave a speech about the transformation. 2 years ago, she said to the audience of business leaders and journalists, "I fired a single father for refusing to prioritize work over his child. It was a test, a way to identify employees who maintained boundaries. I thought I was being strategic, identifying the truly dedicated workers. Instead, that man taught me the most important lesson of my career. He taught me that dedication to family isn't weakness, that boundaries aren't failure, that a person can be excellent at their job while also being excellent at life." His name is Ethan Rivers, and without his courage to speak truth to power, Sterling Enterprises would still be a place where people sacrifice their humanity for productivity. She gestured to where Ethan sat with Noah in the audience. "Ethan, would you join me on stage?" Ethan walked up, uncomfortable with the attention but willing to support Alexis. "Tell them," she said. "Tell them what you told me that day." Ethan looked out at the sea of faces, all watching him expectantly. "I told Miss Sterling that I felt sorry for her, that no matter how successful she became, she'd always be alone if she continued to believe that work was the highest value, that my worth wasn't determined by my willingness to sacrifice my son for a job." He glanced at Alexis, who nodded encouragement. "The truth is, we all have to make choices about what we prioritize. And for me, the choice was simple. My son needed a parent who was present, not just a paycheck. And I needed to be the kind of person who modeled integrity, even when it was scary, even when it cost me something. That day, I thought I was losing everything. But what I actually did was demonstrate the values I wanted my son to learn, and somehow, impossibly, it led to this. To a company that now values people as whole beings, to a culture that recognizes that our work should support our lives, not consume them." The audience applauded. Ethan stepped back, but Alexis stopped him. "One more thing," she said. "Ethan, I'm promoting you to Vice President of Employee Experience. You've earned it, not through long hours or performative dedication, but through genuine wisdom and the courage to speak truth when it mattered most." Later, as Ethan and Noah celebrated with ice cream, his son asked him a question. "Dad, were you scared that day, when you told that lady the truth?" "Terrified, buddy. I thought I was throwing away our security, our future. But I knew I had to do it anyway. Why? Because some things are more important than being safe, like being honest, like showing you that principles matter, even when they're hard to defend. And because I needed you to know that you're more important to me than any job could ever be." Noah hugged him tightly. "I'm glad you told her the truth. Look what happened." Ethan hugged him back, grateful for this small person who made every hard choice worth it. "Yeah, buddy, look what happened." The end. If this story reminded you that speaking truth with courage can change more than you imagine, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales about integrity, family, and the unexpected power of standing firm in your values. Comment below about a time you chose principle over convenience, or when someone's honesty changed your perspective. Your story might give someone else the courage to speak their truth when it matters most.